17. It's a number that carries just an unfathomable weight in Islamic history. According to a profoundly moving sermon by Maulana Tariq Jamil, this number represents the 17 martyrs of Prophet Muhammad's own family, the Al-Bayt, who fell at the fields of Karbala. They stood alongside 72 fiercely loyal companions. But these 17 were not just any men. There's a quote from the source that really hits home. If you place the entire universe on one scale, their weight was heavier. That literally sets the stakes for what we're talking about today. We aren't just looking back at a historical battle. We're exploring a sacrifice that shook the very foundations of faith and humanity.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the echoes of Karbala, sacrifice and modern duty. We're going to distill the deeply emotional recounting of this historic tragedy from Maulana Tariq Jamil's renowned sermon. But more importantly, we're extracting the actionable, everyday moral lessons he draws from it. Because it's not just about looking back at history, it's about looking at ourselves right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the Prophet's beloved grandsons. We absolutely have to start by looking at the immense, overwhelming love Prophet Muhammad had for his grandsons, Hassan and Hussein. You really need to understand this love to grasp the sheer heartbreak of what happens later. The source gives this fascinating, poetic description of them. Hassan resembled the Prophet from his head to his waist, and Hazrat Ali from the waist down. And Hussein was the exact reverse. He looked like Hazrat Ali from head to waist, and the Prophet from the waist down. It's like they were living, breathing reflections of two of the greatest figures in Islamic history. And it wasn't just about how they looked. There's this incredibly tender story where the Prophet was leading a congregational prayer. He went into prostration, sajda, and he just stayed there. He stayed there for so long that his companions actually started to worry. Why? Well, little Hassan and Hussein had climbed right onto his back. He literally refused to move, telling his companions not to disturb them, just waiting until the kids decided to climb down on their own. The speaker also shares this moment where the Prophet playfully hoists little Hussein high up into the air, holding him by his hands, and says this beautiful prayer, "O Allah, I love him, so you love him too." Now, this pure, innocent joy, this divine endorsement, is exactly what makes the ultimate tragedy of Karbala so devastating. The beloved of the Prophet, the beloved of God, was marching toward an unthinkable fate. Section 2, the ultimate sacrifices. So the tone inevitably shifts as we step onto the blood-stained sands of the 10th of Muharram. Tensions were escalating, and after the loyal companions fell, the Prophet's own family stepped forward. What follows is an agonizing sequence of loss. First, the brilliant youth went out. Young men like Qasim, who the sermon beautifully describes as looking like a moon descending upon the earth. Then Ali Akbar. Then, as hard as it is to imagine, the innocent children. And finally, standing entirely alone, Imam Hussain himself. 6 of Hussein's brothers, alongside nephews and sons, were all sacrificed. But honestly, the most gripping, heart-wrenching moment detailed in the sermon is what happened to Hussein's 2-year-old son, Abdullah. This innocent toddler was sitting right in his father's lap when he was struck by an enemy arrow. Hussein caught his own infant son's blood in his hands, threw it up toward the sky, and said with complete submission, "O Lord, if you are pleased with this, my bargain is cheap." Just let that sink in for a second. And we definitely can't talk about this day without acknowledging Hazrat Zainab. The sheer patience and strength she showed is unfathomable. She had to witness the slaughter of children and watch her own brother's head being raised on a spear. Her resilience through that unimaginable grief is just a towering testament to her faith. Section 3, unwavering patience and prayer. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how Imam Hussain prioritized his actions right in the middle of all this chaos. I want to pose this question to you. Why stop for prayer during a literal life or death battle? According to the source, Hussein actually asked his enemies for pause to pray. And no, he didn't do it because he was surrendering or just exhausted. He did it to prove a monumental point about ultimate submission to God. The answer is that this prayer was basically a timeless message delivered right under the shadow of swords. Hussein wanted future generations to know that faith outlives fear. The sermon describes how his camp prayed in halves. Literally, half of them were fighting while the other half prayed. Imam Hussain even performed his ablution using his own blood, or the dry dust of Karbala. Their devotion was absolutely unbreakable. Which brings us to the climax. Before his final stand, Hussein actually had a dream of the Prophet waiting to receive him.
And at precisely 56 years, 5 months, and 5 days old, entirely submitted to God's will, Imam Hussain achieved ultimate martyrdom. The physical battle was over, yeah, but the moral victory had just been sealed forever.
Moving on to Section 4, two radically different legacies.
This brilliantly illustrates the massive contrast between the oppressor and the oppressed. Look at Yazid. He ruled for only 3 fleeting years and died in absolute disgrace at just 39 years old. Meanwhile, Imam Hussain achieved an eternal spiritual victory. His legacy, his name, and his sacrifice are revered and mourned by millions, centuries and centuries later. The source makes it crystal clear. True success isn't about earthly power. Now here's a truly surprising anecdote from the sermon that you might not know. Yazid's own son, a 19-year-old kid, inherited this massive 3-continent empire. But do you know what he did? He stepped down after just 40 days. He stood in front of his people and point-blank declared that he would not sit on a throne stained with the blood of the prophet's family. He rejected an empire spanning 3 continents simply because his conscience couldn't bear the injustice.
Finally, Section 5, the real message for today.
This brings us to the ultimate core of our explainer. Because Karbala isn't just some history lesson we weep over for 10 days out of the year. It's a mirror held right up to our modern lives. So what does it mean for you and me right now? The speaker challenges us with a really striking point. What difference is there between us and the oppressors if we cheat and lie today? We can't curse Yazid all year and then turn around and act with corruption, bribery, or injustice in our own businesses. If we compromise our morals for a few pennies, while Hussein sacrificed everything for the truth, we're missing the entire point. So the speaker gives a very specific, actionable formula for change. Step 1, abandon 3 things: lies, deceit, and justice. Just cut them out entirely. Step 2, adopt 3 things: truth, honesty, and justice. You need to bring these into your everyday dealings, your jobs, your businesses, and how you treat your employees and clients. And crucially, the sermon advises us to stop pointing fingers. Look, it's so easy to blame politicians, right? Whether it's Nawaz, Bhutto, Zardari, or anyone else. But the real message here is to look in the mirror first. Focus on fixing your own moral failings. Make sure your own living is honest before you go out critiquing the world around you.
As the Islamic New Year rolls in, the source lays out some incredibly practical steps for making amends. First, forgive the people who have wronged you. Second, put your ego aside and actually ask for forgiveness if you're the one who messed up. And third, resolve those lingering disputes with your spouse, your family, your friends, or your business partners. Cleanse your heart. We're wrapping up this explainer with a simple yet incredibly powerful call from the source: Tawbah, or repentance. O Allah, my repentance. As you reflect on the staggering sacrifices of the Prophet's family, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to carry forward. Are you honoring the sacrifice of Karbala through your everyday actions? Think about that the next time you face a moral choice. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep seeking the truth.